together now.
After the success of Halo 1, a sequel was pretty much guaranteed. Halo 2 improves on many of the aspects of the original, with a much expanded story, new weapons, more enemies, two main protagonists for some reason, alongside a host of graphical improvements on a fresh new engine. The game ran smoothly out of the box. I didn't need any fixes at all to get this running, although you are saddled with games for Windows Live, even though it's dead. You may need to install it prior to installing the game. You might also need to run incompatibility mode for Windows Vista if you're on Windows 10. For more detailed quality of life fixes, there's Project Cartographer. Cartographer adds in-game menus for the field of view changes, skulls, and even the crosshair offsets. It also brings back the multiplayer and is pretty much a requirement if you want to play online after Microsoft shut down their master server. Thanks to a new engine, Halo 2 looks miles better than the original. Texture quality in general has gone up a lot. Environments are filled with more clutter, and those particle effects still look beautiful. There's nothing truly egregious to look at, but as with most games of this era, interiors look a lot better than exteriors. The decals unfortunately got toned down a little, but considering this was an original Xbox title, it's understandable that some elements were favoured over others. Before we get into the gameplay, there's something that needs to be addressed first. I played through the game on Legendary. Halo 2 is the most difficult of the series to date, and the majority of my comments are going to be based on this difficulty. Lower difficulties won't have as many of these issues, and I highly recommend playing this on normal or heroic if it's your first time. Now to the gameplay. Despite the shields being strengthened and buffed with a faster recharge rate, enemies have been given demonically accurate aim alongside an insane fire rate. Their shots might still deal the same amount of damage, but when you're hit by 8 shots in the time it takes to blink, stronger shields are practically worthless. Many enemy weapons are also extremely punishing with their one-hit kills. In turn, this degrades the variety of options in combat, turning the gameplay into a more peek and hide cover-based game. The Arbiter can get away with being more aggressive thanks to his inbuilt active camo, but the Chief draws the short straw here, especially with grenades having had some serious reductions to their destructive capacity. I found playing as the Arbiter to be much more enjoyable than the Chief, just because there are so many options opened up through the active camo, from quick assassinations, repositioning, and even skipping whole segments of levels with some clever timings. Countering your own quick deaths is the new ability to dual wield certain weapons together, effectively doubling the amount of damage that you can throw out. You can't use grenades while doing this for fairly obvious reasons, and rather annoyingly, switching weapons or mounting turrets will result in the second weapon going flying off into the distance. To accommodate these changes, most weapons have been rebalanced, alongside some nice new extras. Both of the pistols have had their damage reduced, but their signature combo has been left untouched and still works fine. The assault rifle got chucked out the window and replaced with an equally as bad SMG. Dual wielding these can pump out a surprising amount of damage, but the range is incredibly poor. Bridging the gap between snipers and assault rifles are the new battle rifle and carbine, which are perfect for securing headshots while having the effectiveness of a wet sponge on shields. The shotgun got a small range nerf, while the rocket launcher can now lock onto targets, making it perfect for taking out vehicles. The Covenant arsenal in particular has been expanded to offer a counterpart to all the human weapons. I've already mentioned the carbine, which joins its bigger brother the beam rifle, which shares a spot with the sniper. The fuel rod cannon is a higher capacity but weaker version of the rocket launcher, which lets you use it more consistently in fights without feeling like you've wasted the normally rare ammunition of the rocket launcher. There's also the brute shot, a devastating grenade launcher with a giant blade strapped to it. There's also the energy sword, which is the premier weapon for flood slaughter. These new weapons add more variety into the fights, while also adding some infuriating situations. Most of the previous game's enemies have stayed the same, other than some small AI improvements. Elite's tactics have improved somewhat. They also come in a larger variety, allowing them to form squads of their own with deadly outcomes. Grunts are still cannon fodder, hunters are still walking tanks. Jackals have been split in two, some wield shields, others now opt for beam rifles. Beam jackals are quite possibly the most infuriating enemy to fight. On Legendary, a single hit with their beam is death. Thanks to their accurate aim and predisposition to sit themselves in places you wouldn't normally look, you'll be doing a lot of trial and error, with a pile of your own corpses to figure out where they are. Brutes and drones are new. Brutes are hulking sponges, but a few well-placed shots to the head makes them less of a problem. They will also become enraged if they have a final survivor or a fellow brute is killed, throwing away their weapon to charge directly at the player, or a wall, or their own friends. Drones appear sparsely in specific areas. A single drone isn't much of a threat due to their light armor and weapons. 15 drones hovering all around you is certain death. The Flood also returns, less numerous than before, but significantly more deadly. Infection forms can now resurrect dead combat forms unless they've been dismembered. Combat forms are also slightly tougher to kill, but are no longer unfazed by piercing weapons. The Flood also shows more signs of intelligence now. Should you be wielding a sword or a shotgun, they will actively run away from you. They've also learnt how to use vehicles, albeit very, very poorly.
There, I have crushed it.
Sentinels can now endlessly respawn from these strange ports, and a heavier version now exists with frontal shields, claws, and cannons, making it a tough foe to take down. Finally, our old buddies the Marines have been beefed up significantly. They're able to take far more punishment than in the previous games, while also having much better aim. You can swap weapons with them to give them some precision or heavy weapons, and they'll melt through everything in their path. Keeping friendlies alive takes a lot of pressure off the player, and is fairly vital to keeping alive, otherwise every single enemy will focus you down.
There's hands!
Friendlies can now also take control of vehicles on their own volition. This is a nice addition, but it can be extremely annoying when one of the passengers decides to steal your ride. This is because vehicles now take permanent damage, and being in one when it explodes isn't the smartest idea. Vehicles can now also be hijacked. For lighter vehicles, this involves the hijacker stealing your ride. For tanks, there's also the option of punching the driver in the face repeatedly or shoving a grenade in the tailpipe. Humans also now have the Gorse? Warthog? Providing a light vehicle with heavy artillery strapped to the back of it. As for the Covenant, we can now drive their tanks. They also have a Warthog alternative which looks like it belongs on a ski slope. Next, there's the level design. Maybe taking a cue from the blander environments of Halo 1, almost none of the levels look like another. The environments all look beautiful and get across the tone and emotion of each mission really well. Natural storytelling within the levels has also been improved upon. Before, it was mostly just Cortana talking in the player's ear.
This is bad, real bad.
Now there's explosions in the distance, you can see your actions affecting the world around you, and there's other physically moving objects within levels that breathe a lot of life into them. On larger levels especially, the grand vistas offer glimpses into where you'll be ending up further down the line. Which is a nice change, considering most games nowadays offer you these grand vistas, but you can't ever go to them. Moving more into the detailed design aspects, identical rooms have been mostly removed other than a few corridors, and each combat situation usually has multiple options to engage with beyond just walking around the enemy, as there is significantly more verticality to most of the levels. A lot of Halo 1's fighting occurred on flat ground, with the occasional standout area with multiple floors. Halo 2 throws second floors out everywhere. Even if it isn't intended, there is usually a higher up area which can be accessed. Another one of those infuriating additions is some of the near infinite spawns that can occur. Some sections have endless waves of enemies that can eventually overwhelm you if you don't push forward. Vehicle sections in particular come to mind. The number of Gauntlet areas has also increased by what feels like 1,000,000%, with there being at least one on each level, fighting wave after wave of hostiles. Some of these aren't too bad, providing the player with enough supplies and cover to last through. Others have design so atrocious, I question how this got through quality assurance. I mean, look at this room! It's just a few low pillars. You can jump up to this higher viewing area with some effort, but look where the checkpoint returns you to. Who the hell thought this was a good idea? Halo 2 also adds boss fights, which are very mixed. There are 3 throughout the game, each one being fairly similar. The boss takes some damage, temporarily becomes invulnerable or runs away, some more enemies spawn in, repeat until the boss is dead. The difficulty of these is in the checkpoint system, which never feels like it's going your way. You rarely get checkpoints in these boss fights, and with the previously mentioned quick deaths, it can feel like running into a brick wall over and over again. This is at its worst for the final boss fight, where for the entire battle, the player is completely reliant on an AI teammate to remove the boss's shield. There is absolutely no way for you to remove his shield on your own, and it is painful watching him shoot a wall and only hit 2 of the 3 shots required, or not shooting anything at all. Halo 1's story was more of a vehicle to keep the player moving forwards with some vague goal. More coherent plot didn't start appearing till the latter half of the game, and even then there is very little context to the things being said. Halo 2 rectifies this, adding bucketfuls of context to the world by delving deeper into the inner workings of the Covenant and the reasons for why they act the way they do. If you want to avoid spoilers, skip to this time here. Halo 2 picks up right where Halo 1 left off, with the Master Chief back home on Earth. While the Chief is attending a medal ceremony aboard one of Earth's orbital defense cannons, the fleet commander of the Covenant forces that found the ring is on trial for heresy. The ceremony is cut short by the arrival of a small Covenant fleet being led by a prophet, one of the 3 leaders of the Covenant. the Prophet's carrier lands on Earth and starts causing general havoc. After fighting back against the Covenant on the defense platform and down in the city, the carrier then decides to just bail out, jumping out while inside the city, being closely followed by a small frigate commanded by Captain Keyes' daughter, Miranda. Meanwhile, near the ruins of Halo, the disgraced fleet commander is brought before the other two prophets. Instead of being executed for his apparent heresy, he is offered the position of Arbiter, to be sent on suicidal missions that will eventually result in his death. His first mission is to assassinate a heretic leader who has been spreading heresy amongst the Covenant, alongside his soon-to-be best buddy, the Shipmaster. This turns out to be much easier said than done, with the heretic leader taking advantage of the ancient Forerunner facility to stay one step ahead, while also releasing the Flood to kill the Arbiter. Eventually, the reason for the leader's betrayal is made clear. The Monitor is still alive, and has been telling him absolutely everything. The leader still dies, and the Monitor is captured by the Brute's chieftain Tartarus, who conveniently arrives to steal all the credit. Jumping back with the Chief, the jump has taken them to another Halo. Chief is dropped down onto the ring, with the goal of figuring out what the hell is going on. His mission later switches to assassinating the Prophet of Regret. Realizing that the Covenant will try to activate this ring, Miranda heads off to a library to get the key index before they can. Chief manages to kill the Prophet, but is simultaneously thrown into the lake as the Covenant's main fleet arrives. Returning back to the Covenant, change is afoot. The previous elite honor guards are being replaced by the Brutes after the death of a Prophet. The Arbiter is given a new mission, to find the key index to activate the ring. Sounds familiar? Once again, it's easier said than done. The Flood are already loose on this ring, and are locked in an eternal struggle with the local sentinels. A four-way battle ensues around the library between the Covenant, humans, Flood, and the sentinels. After much fighting alongside the Shipmaster and his troops, the Arbiter reaches the key, slightly after the humans do. Tartarus once again swoops in, captures all the humans and the key, while knocking the Arbiter off the ledge as his usefulness is now over. In an unlikely turn of events, both protagonists are saved by the Flood's leader, calling himself the Gravemind. The Arbiter is forced to face some unwelcome facts, but an uneasy truce is made to prevent the ring from firing.
But you will find no salvation on this ring. Those who built this place knew what they wrought. Do not mistake their intent, or all will perish as they did before.
The Chief is teleported back to High Charity, the Covenant holy ship. The city is in chaos as the elites are being ousted from power by the Brutes, resulting in conflicts across the whole fleet. Miranda's ship jumps in unexpectedly. Unfortunately, it's been commandeered by the Flood, who infects one of the prophets, while the rest of High Charity is the perfect meal already weakened by infighting. Backtracking through the ship to chase after a final prophet and escape, Cortana decides to stay behind with a backup plan to blow up the ship should the ring start firing. The Chief manages to hitch a ride on the Forerunner escape ship in the center of High Charity and jumps away to destinations unknown. At the same time, the Arbiter has been teleported near the ring's control center. It is here where the Covenant Council members who came to witness the ring firing are being massacred by the Brutes. Fighting through the Brute-loyal forces with the aid of elite-friendly forces, the Arbiter rescues Johnson, and another uneasy alliance is made between the humans and the elites to stop the ring going off. Tartarus begins the activation sequence by using Miranda, but is promptly killed by the Arbiter. The firing sequence is halted, but unfortunately this misfire places every other ring into standby mode, ready to be fired from a remote location. Back on Earth, their defences are being smashed to pieces by the Covenant. The Covenant ship arrives with their chief in tow, and the game just ends. Overall, the storytelling is greatly improved from the original game. A definitive enemy, political intrigue, the questioning of allegiances with religious fanaticism and zealotry, on top of the mountain of context to fill the gaps presented in the previous game. The Arbiter especially shows tremendous growth as a character, having his entire world shattered and slowly rebuilt. Cutscene quality has also shot up through the roof. They're even using higher resolution models in this one. The switching of the characters can get a little annoying, especially at the end of the game where the switching occurs 4 times in as many levels, in order to simulate the events happening in real time. The cliffhanger ending is also fairly disappointing, but this was because of several sections of the game that needed to be cut. At least it made a sequel to continue the story, unlike other games. Valve. Hello again. Cheering from the sidelines once again is the fantastic soundtrack, still made by O'Donnell and his partner Michael Salvatore. There's also some tracks made by other independent bands that feature during some battle sections which are quite good, although I don't think they mesh very well with the established soundtrack style. Last but not least is the multiplayer. Thanks to Cartographer, it's back up and running. There aren't many players, and compared to Halo 1 there's significantly less madness, but that doesn't stop it from being an entertaining distraction. Ultimately, Halo 2 is just as enjoyable as the original thanks to its numerous improvements. Just don't play on Legendary right away unless you like that Dark Souls feeling of being crushed into the dirt. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one where we question the ethics of eating people.
What happened here?
Me have bad feeling about this. You always have bad feeling. You had bad feeling about morning food nipple.
Close your jaws, or I shall bind them shut.